Welcome back. This is By the Book, and we're married relationship coaches. I'm Sent.
I'm Sil.
And today we're talking about a little clip that we saw on Cam Newton's YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it is. It's bsimone and Funky Friday as, I don't know, having a conversation with Cam about polygamy. And it's just interesting. We thought we'd talk it over with you guys and get your thoughts about it too. But I think, anyway, that a lot of men in our society sometimes highlight the polygamy that happened in the Bible as if it's something that is accepted or natural, expected even. And I think it's a misuse of scripture sometimes. I think my husband and I definitely talk about that a lot in terms of many things in the Bible. But we were able to use Cam Newton to kind of highlight what we think is like a typical viewpoint from a lot of men in our society and kind of break that down a little bit with my husband, the Bible guy, with his master's in theology. So he can break it down for us a little bit better.
In our religion, it has got lost in translation. And I warrant what I'm about to say. People say, oh, that's in the Old Testament, this is the New Testament, and things like that. There are some high-valued men in the Bible that had a lot of favor from God by having multiple wives and multiple concubines. So you can't sit up here and say you want a man of God and not acknowledge the fact that, oh, in this society it's socially accepted. But in the Bible, when you talk about David, when you talk about Solomon, the wisest person in all of earth, he had the most wives anybody has ever had, and concubines. And when David was in battle, he would go back to not only to save his wives, but to go back and protect his concubines. And then we find a way in a situation where we talk about relationships in this day and time and not knowing the realization that the Bible has always been a place where everybody wasn't always married to one wife. Hell, I think a lot of people have to understand this too. Everybody in the Bible wasn't even married.
Yeah, well, Cam Newton, and so theology, I think it's very important to use a proper theology when you're breaking down the Bible. And my personal definition of theology is making sense of Scripture in the greater context of Scripture. So in other words, he used Solomon, he used David. He didn't actually read a verse, but the same kind of applies. If you're going to use Solomon and if you're going to use David, and I don't even throw in Abraham for good measure, if you're going to throw those guys in there from the Old Testament, then their situation has to make sense within the greater context of Scripture. And so I think he just kind of threw it out there haphazardly. And we know that the Bible has to make sense because there's no conflict in God and there's no confusion in God. And so what we kind of like seeing is a little bit of confusion, I think, in his interpretation, and that kind of like meets his own needs. That's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, we see it a lot. You cherry pick what things you think you like to hear in the Bible.
Yeah.
You hear so much about men saying, oh, women are supposed to be submissive. It's here in the Bible. And they don't talk about anything about what men's duties are. It's just I want a submissive woman. You don't even know what that means, you know?
Yeah.
And it references wives. So they use that in the context of like just women in general or girlfriends, people that they're dating. No, it's not applicable there.
Yes.
You know, and likewise, this example about, first of all, let me say this. If you guys paid attention to what he said in that clip, and I'll just repeat it because I wrote it down because I thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
I'm very nitpicky sometimes about words, but I feel like words mean a lot. God bless you.
Thank you.
He said a lot of high-value men in the Bible that had a lot of favor from God by having multiple wives and multiple concubines.
Yes.
He said by having multiple wives and multiple concubines. I feel like there's only two ways to interpret that. Either he means that the favor that they got from God was having multiple wives and multiple concubines. But what I more so took it as, the way he said it, was that he's saying, by in them having that, like somehow was a causal effect. Like they had all these wives and concubines, and then God bestowed favor upon them. And either way, that's wrong, right?
Either way is definitely wrong. And so we can look at, like I said, Abraham. We can look at David, and we can look at Solomon, by which Solomon appears to be the greatest contributor to this, because like he said, he had like 800 wives and 300 concubines, or whatever the case may be. And so he's saying that God blessed him because of this, basically. And so here it is. You can say that, and you can say that we have the interpretation wrong, because he also said that too. And because of the different type of social standpoints that we have, and cultural standpoints that we have, you can say that it's been misinterpreted, because these guys were highly favored by God. They were highly favored in spite of these things, not that they were operating in what God had tended for them to operate in. First of all, you're talking about Solomon, you're talking about David. Those were two kings. And I don't know any kings personally. But I do know that that was kind of like something that was culturally acceptable within that time period for kings, okay? And so you have that aspect of it. But you also have to go back to the beginning, when God said to Adam, or actually before that, he took the rib out of Adam. If God intended for there to be multiple wives, I think Adam had more ribs than just that one that he could have taken out, right?
He didn't have 800 though.
You know, but he could have took out more if he intended for Adam to have multiple wives. So that's an aspect that we see. And then God speaks very plainly, and he says that for this reason, you know, that this man, or the man shall leave his mother and his father and cleave to his wife. One man for one woman. That's what he outlined. And then if you can go, you can even say in the New Testament with Jesus, in the book of Matthew, when Jesus gave the definition for marriage, he referred right back to Genesis chapter 2. And so he repeated it. For this reason, a man shall leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife. And what did Adam say after that? This is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. He didn't say it for umpteen wives or umpteen women. He didn't say that. He said that for one. That was Eve. And so we have the definition of marriage. Nobody, including me, including David, including Solomon, can rewrite the definition of marriage. Why? Because it is an institution that God started, and he's the only one that can give the definition of it. And so, yes, David and Solomon and even Abraham were blessed, even though they violated that. God can look past many things. God looked past things for me. He looked past things for everyone in existence, and he looked past that for David and Solomon.
Right. I mean, just because they were okay, that he didn't like smite them on sight, didn't mean that wasn't incorrect. I mean, there were prostitutes and all kinds of people in the Bible who were blessed, and that I don't think that anybody is sitting around here arguing, well, God intended people to be prostitutes. You know what I mean? And like, you don't hear that. So why is it that manipulated whenever it suits you?
Exactly. And then the other thing, I think the lady, the Christian lady on the panel, I think she brought up a really good point when she brought up Ephesians chapter 5, when she says, husbands, love your wives. He tried to make a big deal out of it, talking about it saying multiple wives. No, it's just speaking in general of multiple husbands and multiple wives, husbands and wives. Husbands, love your wives. That's all it's saying.
Right, because he said, was it singular or plural? But then my question to him would have been, well, when it's flipped and they say, wives, love your husbands, is that singular or plural?
Yes.
You know what I mean? So does that mean what's good for the goose is good for the gander? Yeah. Like, y'all can have several wives and we can have several husbands? Like, making a semantic issue out of that was kind of crazy.
It was. But I love her explanation of it, is that is calling for a man to be sacrificial. It is calling for him to sacrifice to his hurt for her good. That's basically what it's saying. And not many men can walk in that. And so it is saying, and when she said, a man can't die multiple times. Basically, I'm paraphrasing what she's saying. So in order for that to happen, I have to be sacrificial to my wife. I can't die for multiple wives. I can only die one time. And so in order for that phrase, in order for that verse to be accurate, I can only die one time. Think about it this time. How many churches did Christ die for?
Yeah.
Just one. Just one. And here, how about this? The Bible also says that a man cannot serve two masters. He's either going to love one and despise the other, and so forth with wives. You see the problem with polygamy and all of this different type of stuff when women kind of like fall out with one another because the jealousy begins to start. You see that in the Bible as well, but he didn't talk on none of that. You saw that with Sarah and Hagar. You saw that within a lot of the different type of situations where polygamy was accepted, so to speak. And so I can hear what he's saying, but I think it's from his own personal viewpoint of him wanting to see what he wants to see.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting, guys. I'm curious what you all have to say about it. I think, why can't he just go with, it's illegal? You know what I mean? It's not allowed. So just,
Yeah.
Who cares about what your argument is for? Yeah. It's not allowed.
No.
The other marriage would be invalid.
Yeah.
You might get arrested. How about that?
How about that? But the other thing is Cam is not married, but he has children by, I think at least one woman. And so we know that he's a serial. Yeah.
Well, they asked him, did he want multiple wives? He's like, oh, no.
Because he doesn't want to be married. Yeah. He doesn't want to assume that type of responsibility of being a husband. And so here it is. He probably is like saying, hey, I want to keep my options open. I'm a very well-known, I'm a very famous, I'm a very rich guy. Yeah. And so why settle down with one woman? Well, because if you read that Bible the way you were trying to say that you were just reading it, you will understand, again, that, it's one woman for one wife, and you will walk in your responsibility and in your love of God by exercising that with one wife.
Yeah. And besides, if we allow for there to be polygamous relationships, divorce would be horrible. Like, don't do that to us. Attorneys got it hard enough. Can you imagine trying to work out marital property when just one wife wants to divorce you and you got 7?
Yeah.
Oh, my word. Everybody would be involved in the litigation.
Yeah. Well, what was so funny? When me and my wife was discussing this earlier, I asked her, I said, what if I was from like an African country like Nigeria and I approached you and I said, hey, you know what? I can have multiple wives. You'll be my first wife. But just to let you know, down the road, I may just, bring in another wife. You should have saw the look on her face. But let me ask you, if that was the case, if I were to approach you with that type of proposal, what would your response have been?
Like my verbal response?
Yes, kind of like similar the way your face is looking at me again.
Probably nothing. I mean, that's a walk away type moment. It's like, oh, he's crazy. Let me just go on about my business.
Yeah.
Who's going to entertain that?
Yeah.
I can't imagine. I mean, I know there's women out there who may be okay with it, who may see some sort of financial benefit from it or something like that. Not really sure, but I ain't the one. Yeah. Let's just go.
Well, I'll tell you what, thank you for not cussing me out because your face continues to look like you want to.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
So yeah, guys, let us know what you think. Thought this video was interesting. Have you talked to people who think that that's okay? What's your position on it? What's your argument for or against it? Drop those comments below. Like, share, subscribe, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.